Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back one final time to Assassin's Creed 2. I know I have done a bunch of more than 30, I think almost 40 episodes on Assassin's Creed 2. And I completed the game. So I played through it and I defeated the final scene, and there was all the credits in the end and so on. But one thing that was missing was a 100% completion of the game, which I wanted to achieve before I uninstall everything. And this video is not really for anyone else but myself, to prove to myself that I actually completed the game in its entirety. And I just want to go through all of the stats and all of the records within the game that show that everything has been completed, so I can prove to myself that I've actually done it. I'm playing this on PC, on Steam more accurately, and in the background the whole Steam installation is also connected to Uplay, and neither Uplay nor Steam have a good achievement system. So if I had played this on PlayStation, for example, which has a very nice trophy system, I would have a bunch of nice trophies, probably a platinum trophy to show now for this game. But in this case I have to make do with the in-game stats and show them in this video. So yeah, I think that was enough babbling now, and I want to go through all of the screens that show that I've completed everything that can be completed and make myself happy by showing exactly these things. So I wish to start with the stats from the DNA. The DNA in the game shows all of the things that I have achieved. And as you can see, I've begun at sequence 1, not too surprising, and I've gone through all the way up to number 14, which is the final memory sequence for the game. This is where you beat the game. I can go in here in each of these and click on these and replay them. Unlike later Assassin's Creed games, this one does not have degrees of completion yet. So there's no such thing such as 100% completion or conditions that you need to meet to get 100% completion of a sequence. So I could replay all of them, but there's nothing that tells me whether I've done any of these good or bad. So there you go. So that's number 14. I've seen all of the viewpoints. There's 73 of them. I could go through all of these things and then look at things in a bit more detail. But the important bit is there's 73 of them, and I've been to all 73. Secret locations. Now that is an interesting beast, because as you can see, I've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these equal the 5 tombs that you need to visit in order to get the 6 armor pieces of Altair. The 6th tomb is not in here because it is part of the actual game. So you visit that one in one of the memory sequences. That's your first one, and then you need to visit these 5 in any order. As you can see, there are 4. I can't even go further to the right, but these dark red things, they show you that there are 4 secret locations that I have not visited. The thing is, I cannot visit them. It's very unfortunate, because in order to get these, you need to be a bit privileged. So the first thing you need to have done to visit 2 of these 4 is to have ordered the collector's edition. So if you purchase the collector's editions, there's a code in there which you need to use online, and then you unlock 2 of these 4 locations, which I don't have. The third one you get when you pre-order the game from GameStop, which is something that I also could not have done because I played this game in 2016, and obviously there was no way to pre-order anything like this on GameStop anymore. The final one is a bit unfortunate, because the 4th one was available from Uplay as a DLC that you could purchase online with Ucoins and then play. Unfortunately, that stuff is not available on the Uplay store anymore. So I also checked Steam. It's also not available on Steam. So yeah, these 4 things, they are impossible for me to get anymore for the rest of my life, unless I suppose I managed to find somewhere a still shrink-wrapped collector's edition, which nobody has used. I don't think that I will go to that extent to complete everything in this game. Okay, so that's the secret locations. 100 feathers. There are 100 feathers in the game. So our main character is Ezio Auditore da Firenze, and he had, in the beginning of the game, a family. I'm not going to spoil much more of that. Well, you might have seen the videos. These feathers, they are a tribute to Ezio's little brother. And there were 100 of them to collect all over the game, and there's no in-game maps, so I had to make do with maps that I find online and use those to find all of the maps in Florence, in Monteriggioni, which is the Auditore Villa, in Tuscany, in Romagna, and in Venice. So altogether there were 100 of them, and that also gives us an interesting... well, there will be another proof of that in a couple of minutes in the villa. And then there are secondary missions all over the place. There are beat-up missions, 5 of them. I've done them all. There are races, which, as you can see, I've also all completed. And there are assassination contracts, and there's, again, a bunch of them all over the place, and I will just quickly scroll through all of them to show you that none of them is marked as unknown anymore. Done. All of them done. Nice. They're courier missions, so you need to pick up something and bring it to a certain location, and they are all done as well. And finally, there are treasure chests in the game, and there are 330 of them, which is plenty. And I collected all of them. To give you an example of Venice, which has the most of them, it has these statistics which show you in more detail that you've collected all of them. These are easier to find because you can purchase maps in the game that show you on the in-game map where the chests actually are located. Okay, so that's all the information that we can get from the DNA. Taking a quick look at the database, we can see, well, there's nothing here that shows us that we've met all of these people and all of these contacts. There's nothing that shows us a completion meter. But since I've done everything else, I will just presume that I found everything in there that can be found. I can click on these things and get a bit of video and information and so on about each of the targets that Ezio has killed, which is nice as well. Locations. I can go through all of the locations if I wanted to and maybe check them against a list. Given that I've been everywhere and done everything else, I will presume that I've seen all of the locations. The interesting thing here, I will use the mouse for a second, is up here, which shows you the number of glyphs that I've seen and the number of assassin tombs I've visited. So these are the secret locations in the game that you saw earlier in the DNA strand. And I can go through the 5 locations in the game, so Venice, Florence, Tuscany, Romagna, and Rome. Rome is the final thing, but the final cutscene in the final mission, so there's not a whole lot else to discover on there. Secret locations, we've been through these, and as I said, I cannot attain any of the 4 that are missing. Documents, I could go through all of the codex pages, but there will be more proof about the codex pages in a couple of minutes. Letters, I've done everything else, so I will have found all of the letters. The Truth is a video that I'm not playing now to show you so in order not to spoil any of the story to you. But The Truth is a collection of the bits of information from the glyph puzzles that you find in the games, which again relate to the locations here with these symbols. So given that I found all of these glyphs and solved all of these puzzles, means that I finished that one as well. Sweet. Oh, in the options, maybe I should take a quick look at the options too. Just like this, because there's a stats section in there. Now, you will see that my sync percentage is only 97.1. This is, I presume, I very, very strongly presume, because of the secret locations that I cannot visit anymore. So it's not actually possible for me to reach 100%, and 97.1 is as far as it gets for me. What I find interesting is that apparently I walked, ran, and so on 240 kilometers in this game within 44 hours of playtime. 44 hours, actually, I think it is maybe 4 hours or so less, maybe 5 or 6 hours less. Because there were occasions where I would just let the game run in order to have money accumulate in the villa chest from all of the shops and so on that you can renovate. A bit more detail on that in a few minutes as well. I died 24 times. There you go. My favorite weapon apparently was the hidden plate. I killed 1,400 enemies. That sounds like a lot of dead people. Enemies assassinated and so on. Air assassinations, disarms, not a whole lot of disarms, not something that I really paid much attention to as a game mechanic. Navigation, I climbed altogether almost 14 kilometers, which is a lot of distance. Distance covered on ground, 160. There was a lot of swimming, a lot of riding as well, and so on. I didn't really use the gondolas much. I didn't like the mechanism. I didn't like that. Distance flown, oh god, don't get me started about the flying machines. The villa. We will see more detail about the villa in a couple of seconds, but as you can see, I restored 100% of these as well. And all of the shops and so on. I completed all of the collections. And finally, social. This just gives us a bunch of information about some of what the game thinks are social aspects. All right, talking briefly to Claudia, who is our sister.
Salute, Claudia.
Salute.
You here to look at the book?
I am indeed here to look at the book. Okay, so let's have a look at the summary. The summary says 100% completion, which is nice, and all of the income that comes from that. The small red triangles, let me use the mouse for a couple of seconds here. You can see I upgraded art merchants, banks, blacksmiths, doctors and tailors, well, one of them each, within the villa, within Monteregioni, which is fantastic. And all of these shops are open and all of them are leveled up to level 3. Renovations. I renovated all of these things within Monteregioni as well, and all of these have been completed, so we are up to 10,000 income for that as well. Collections. So I collected all of the 30 codex pages, we will see that shortly. I collected all of the feathers, we already saw that. 2 models. There was 2 small things that you acquire automatically within the game, so there's no searching involved there. 6 seals, this is why I am wearing the fancy armor that I'm wearing. I bought all of the paintings that are available from the art shops in the game. And I also have assassinated all of the targets I need to assassinate, so I have all of these portraits as well, which you are also going to see in a couple of minutes. And yeah, couple of tick marks down there to show all of these things as well. 22 weapons, I acquired all of the weapons in the game, and I acquired all of the armor that is in the game. We will see that shortly as well. And this is just a little bit of unimportant statistic.
A presto, Ezio.
A presto, Ezio. Okay, codex pages. Codex pages give us information about the truth in the game, and we have collected them all up here. And when we come up with a bit of eagle vision like this, we also can see some secret information that the codex pages reveal when you have aligned them properly and sorted them properly on the wall. It's a map of the world, which is pretty fascinating because we are doing this at the end of the 15th century, like 1400, so end of the 14th century, 1480 or so, and no such map there could have possibly have existed. We will take a short trip to the basement, because the basement contains a tomb of tomb of Altair, and there in the middle is a statue, and this statue used to hold the armor of Altair, and this is what I'm wearing right now. So this little nice black outfit. And for that I needed to collect these 6 seals from the assassin tombs, do a bunch of parkour missions, which was strenuous at times, and I did all of that, and then this door here opened and I gained access to the armor and put it on and looked like a complete badass. So there is that. Let's go back up to the ground floor of the villa, because there's other things to look at as well. So we've talked to Claudia, we have seen all the details here, and we will walk over there to this part of the house, where we can see our armor collection. We have already seen earlier in the book held by Claudia that all of the armor was there, but nicely it gets displayed here on these things as well. And this one is not being shown because I'm currently wearing it. There are 2 missions in the game which involve the handling of machines. Well, yeah, we can call them machines if you want. Certainly we can call this the flying machine. And this was an absolute horrifying experience. I hoped that I would never have to deal with flying machines again. And guess what happened in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood? And also had to drive and flee on a carriage, which this little thing here commemorates. And just as we have a room that shows all of our armor, there's also a room that shows all of the weapons that we've collected. So there's all of the blunt weapons here, and there's a bunch of swords, which are fairly pretty. And there's more swords here. There's one sword that you cannot see up there because I'm wearing it, which is the Sword of Altair, which I'm also going to explain in a second. And then there's knives. Knives. And secondary weapons, which I'm wearing at the moment, which is why you cannot see them here right now. Okay, we've done everything on the ground floor here. We can take a short detour to the garden, because there's something we can see in the garden as well. Throughout the villa grounds, there were statues that were, or statuettes, if you will. Those were hidden along the grounds, and you would collect them and put them on these pedestals. And then when you put them on these pedestals, they revealed a little bit of treasure, a little bit of cash, which helped you earlier on in the game. So we have Mars and Venus here, which we collected, and those statues were also mentioned earlier in the DNA. And then we have Diana and Apollo, which we collected. Should I say we collected or that I collected? I'm always unsure. And then here we have Jupiter and Minerva. And around this corner we have the final 2, Neptune and Pluto. Whilst we're outside and it's actually daylight, it's interesting to see what the front of the villa looks like, and actually what the entire town looks like. Because it's very, very different to what you experience when you first get to this place. Because it has all of these fancy assassin flags all over the place, and the house is renovated. Up there on the left you can see one of the glyphs, by the way, one of the glyph puzzles. This is a barcode, strangely. So yeah, we've got all of these banners hanging around here. So this is a lot prettier than what you would see right in the beginning of the game. Okay, so what do we want to look at next? I would like to point out the paintings collection. So the paintings here are the paintings that you can purchase in the game just because you can, and in order to increase the amount of money that is generated by the villa. So you've got all of these great, important, well-known works that are lining the walls. all of these frames are empty at the beginning of the game, and you fill all of them over time. Let's have a quick run around to show that all of the frames have been filled with paintings. Nice, very stylish. I like it. Another thing to look at up here is the chamber of Maria. Maria is our mother, and after the events in the beginning of the game, she fell into a bit of a, what should we call it, catatonic state, where she would kneel in front of her bed about here and pray constantly and do nothing else. She couldn't be talked to. And all the time you collect the feathers, as I pointed out earlier, and you collect the feathers and you put them here in the chest. And now you can see it says 100 of 100 feathers collected. And as soon as that happened, it was possible to talk to her again, and she was very happy that someone actually paid attention to her and the memory of her children. She becomes an important character in the next parts of the game, by the way. In the next part, at least. And this is Ezio's private room. The most important thing in here, apart from the fact that it's a lot prettier when it's renovated like this, more pretty than in the beginning of the game, it has all of the portraits of the targets that were killed. So there are the Pazzi conspirators, there is Francesco de Pazzi, there's Emilio Barbarigo, Vieri de Pazzi, there's of course Uberto Alberti. Right here we have Carlo Grimaldi and Girolamo Savonarola. Then we have the Orsi brothers. That was a funny one. Then we've got Marco Barbarigo, Silvio Barbarigo, and finally Rodrigo Borgia. And I'm not going to go into too much detail why this portrait should actually not be there. Alright, so we've looked at all of the things in the villa. The basement, the ground floor, and the upper floor. We have looked at the DNA. We have looked at... Let's take one final look at something. Boop. Let's jump down here. And the one thing that I want to look at, I need a better light source, is... No, you can't see it very well, unfortunately. Ah, now we can see it. What I wanted to point out is the cape that I'm wearing. And this is the Auditore cape, which is gifted to you, granted to you by the game at a certain point. I'm not going to go into much detail there, but you can attain a plain cape that you can wear all the time. The Medici cape, when you get this one when you complete a certain portion of the game. Same for the Venetian cape. And these have the advantage that if you wear them in the correct location, your notoriety in that location will not go up anymore. So you can do whatever the hell you want, and the guards are not going to take more notice of you than they usually do. You still, of course, they still hate it when you commit crimes, like climbing on rooftops, which they don't like, or, well, killing people. But everything else, they are not going to look after anymore. And this cape, the Auditore cape, is the exact opposite. With that, you get the highest notoriety value in all of the towns all the time. So this is a bit of a higher difficulty setting, so to speak. And I'm always wearing this when I'm around the villa. Right, I believe I've shown us everything. I think I should conclude the game here in this room. By the way, we can look at...
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. This is just a fancy way of looking at...
Shall we take a look at the list?
At the entire town. Because here you can choose, you know, where the art merchant is, where the bank is, how far you have renovated everything, and so on and so on. So it's just a fancy way of looking at the entire
Buon
town.
viaggio!
and where you can actually go and upgrade things. Okay, I believe we have seen everything, and I've given myself sufficient proof that I've completed this game as close to 100% as is possible for me in the end of 2016 and or at this moment, the beginning of 2017. I'm going to say thank you. I've babbled on for 25 minutes about me completing this game now. Thank you for listening, thank you for paying attention, and I hope to see you again in one of my future gameplays, one of my future videos. I want to point out that I will probably try and do most of them in German rather than in English. But maybe I will also return to English for some other games. We will see. I will make this decision on a per game basis, really, and then see where that takes me. Anyway, thank you everyone. Thank you very much for your attention. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, and I hope to see you very, very soon again. And until then, I say bye.